Good morning. Dan King here for Chelsea FC correspondent for The Sun in Bergamo, the morning after the night before. And in true James Richardson style, looking at the Corriere dello Sport this morning, it's a pretty simple verdict. Dreamland for Atalanta is the rough translation that even my Italian can do. And yeah, although it was a dream result for Atalanta last night, very much a nightmare for Chelsea, with a few very familiar themes beginning to crop up. Now, the verdict in Corriere dello Sport is very similar to Enzo Maresca's, that Chelsea, having scored through João Pedro in the first half against the run of play, did have control of the game. And what Atalanta needed was a spark. That spark was provided by, of course, ex-West Ham striker Gianluca Scamacca, whose headed equaliser in the 55th minute really sort of changed the course of the game. And after that, as Maresca said, his team lost control. And although it didn't feel like an Atalanta goal was inevitable, when it came, it wasn't a massive surprise and it wasn't undeserved. Now, they will look back, Chelsea, particularly to a chance for Reece James early in the second half. If it had gone 2-0 then, you feel that Chelsea might have gone on to win the game and take a big step towards the top 8 and not having to play playoff games in February. But now that's very, very much in doubt. And as I said, there are some familiar themes sort of cropping up among this. Among them, and a familiar thing is the bad goals. And I think the questions that have been asked quite frequently, both in the build-up to the season and at times during this season, about the Chelsea defence came to the fore. Again, both goals are avoidable. It's not quite clear how Scamacca found himself free at the back post to head past Sanchez, nor how De Ketelaere found it so easy to get down the right and send the cross in. And thereafter, things became really problematic for Chelsea. And I think the other thing that will be questioned is the amount of changes. Now, Maresca made a fairly decent justification of it afterwards, saying, look, 8 or 9 of these players who started tonight, they're the same players who've been starting the big games, who started against Barcelona, who started against Arsenal, who played against Spurs, and so on. That may be true. But the question is whether they need to play even more consistently to get more consistent results, or the fact that those same players are having to play in order to try and get results means that they're getting tired. Now, if you look at, for examples of tiredness, you look at, say, Enzo Fernandez. Now, there's one moment in the first half where he was sent through by João Pedro, but then didn't quite have the drive to go directly to the box and get a shot off. But probably more tellingly, again, early in that second half before Scamacca equalised, Jamie Gittins played a lovely ball through, which a fully fit and firing Enzo Fernandez would have charged onto and certainly got a shot off to test Marco Carnesecchi in the Atalanta goal, but he didn't. And in the end, Chelsea paid for not having taken those chances. It was a funny night really for Chelsea, because with the tiredness coming in and the defensive, and you wonder how many of these things are linked. Now, if you look at the starting lineup, there were 5 changes from the Bournemouth game, and there've been 6 changes going into the Bournemouth game. But each time there are changes in the defence, and in this case there were 2 changes of personnel, and Chalobah moved across to play next to George Ajampong, who had a pretty good game at right back for quite a lot of it, made a very, very important interception or block rather on an Ademola Lookman shot before João Pedro scored. But that kind of disruption to the defence in every game cannot help in creating the kind of understanding that prevents conceding the silly goals, which Maresca keeps talking about. There was an element of misfortune last night in that the head injury, which Fofana picked up, Wesley Fofana, who himself was a substitute for Chalobah at half-time, the head injury he picked up and which forced him off was unlucky, which then meant that Tosin had to come on, and it was up into the third different back four of the evening. But again, when De Ketelaere got the ball after a quick free kick 7 minutes from time, the defence didn't look settled. It backed off, and even the probably the most reliable player of the season alongside Moises Caicedo, Marc Cucurella, he and Benoit Badiashile were guilty of sort of just dropping back, and De Ketelaere was able to go on and get his shot off, and with the aid and reflection of Cucurella, sealed the game for Atalanta. That means they now have 13 points and they're looking set fair to qualify for the last 16 without the need for a playoff. That Chelsea now, as Maresca admitted, are really looking at having to win both their remaining games. And the problem he has, and the problem Chelsea has, is that the first of those two games is away in Naples against former boss Antonio Conte, if he's still in charge of Napoli at that point. The third thing we return to after bad goals and the rotation system and possible tiredness is the away form. I mean, it seems incredible that sort of just 2 weeks after Chelsea were in dreamland themselves, like Atalanta are said to be here in the paper after beating Barcelona 3-0, very convincingly. It's now 4 games without a win since then, and the last 3 all away from home have yielded only one draw, and they haven't won a Champions League game away yet this season. In fact, their last win in the Champions League was away from home was way back in November 2022 at Salzburg. That's something they've got to sort out, and something Maresca's got to sort out and work out whether it is a question of mentality, concentration, and just what he can do to just pick up a team which 2 weeks ago seemed to be again on the right track. But again, it's been a theme of this season, and just when it seems like things are going well, and Chelsea are pushing for a space at the top of the Premier League, doing well in the Champions League, that you could take another step back. And I'm not sure it's even 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's almost 1 forward, 2 back, or certainly 2 forward, 2 back. I mean, we're not necessarily seeing the progress we might have expected. And let's make no bones about it, although it's a home game on Saturday, Everton are going to pose a real threat again, and it's going to be very, very hard, much as it was in the physical battle against Bournemouth and against Leeds, for this Chelsea team, especially if they're tired, to impose themselves on David Moyes' Everton. And one more fallout thing, and again it plays into the whole rotation system and the tiredness factor. A colleague of mine was having a look at the fixture schedule for the new year, and if Chelsea go to Cardiff next week in the quarter-finals of the Carabao Cup and win and seal a 2-legged semi-final in January, and if Chelsea fail to finish in the top 8 in the Swiss League and the Champions League, and have to therefore have a 2-legged playoff in February to reach the knockout stages of the Champions League, that will mean they will have only 1 midweek off between the start of January and the end of March, which for a team which is already running on fumes is going to be really, really tough. So, as the paper said, it was a dream for Atalanta, but things are in danger of turning into a nightmare for Chelsea and for Enzo Maresca if he can't halt this poor run and find a way to manage his squad in such a way that they are able to keep their best players fit for the best games, but also win more games than they are at the moment, because, like I said, the feel-good factor for Barcelona really seems to have gone.